Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we're going to be making some sourdough discard Snickerdoodles with some roast beef melts that are kind of like a poor man's Philly cheesesteak. So we're going to start out with our cookies. We're going to be adding in 2 sticks of softened butter. So that's 1 cup of softened or room temperature butter. I'm going to put these in our big bowl. And I always start with the wet ingredients and then we'll mix in the dry as we go. So let's get our butter in here. And you're gonna want room temperature or softened butter because it creams so much easier than cold butter. And we're gonna be using 1 1⅓ cup of granulated sugar. So pour that in there. And then 1/3 cup more. There we go. Plus 1/3 cup of brown sugar. And while it's not a lot of brown sugar, it does give it a nice kind of flavor than using just all granulated sugar. So we need 1/3 cup of this. And remember, with brown sugar, you want kind of firmly packed sugar to push it down, because the ground sugar or brown sugar is more loose in your containers. So make sure it's 1/3 cup when it is all pushed down. Okay. And then 1/3, get some of these out of the corner, of our brown sugar. And now we're gonna cream our butters and our sugars together. So I'm just using a hand mixer, but you could also use a stand mixer, or you could just use some old-fashioned spoon and some elbow grease. We're gonna cream these together. We're gonna mix them until all the sugar and the butter come together in like a nice paste. There we go. And that takes about, I want to say, about a minute or so on using your things. Goes a little bit faster in the stand mixer. There we go. And let's get in there. Mix it all the way around. And what I like to do when I'm using a hand mixer is I kind of beat it into the sides of the bowl instead of just being in the very middle. That helps it kind of incorporate a little bit faster. There we go. Okay. Now we have our butter and our sugar mixed together. We've creamed them together. We're gonna add in our egg and some vanilla. So for this recipe, we're gonna be using 1 whole egg plus 1 yolk of an egg. So we'll start out with our whole egg. Put it in there, and then we're gonna add just the yolk. And so I'm gonna do this over the sink so I can have my whites drop down. There we go. And I'm just kind of scooping the yolk back and forth until all the egg white is gone. This is gonna give just a nice richer texture to our cookies for our Snickerdoodles. And we're gonna be also using some sourdough discard. We're also gonna add in 1 tablespoon of vanilla. I'm gonna have to use, I'm running low on my vanilla, so I've got a little bit of another bottle to help out with as well. Probably gonna use them both up. Oh, perfect. I had exactly 1 tablespoon left. And we're gonna cream our vanillas with the eggs into our brown sugar and cinnamon, or brown sugar and butter mixture for our Snickerdoodles. Okay. Perfect. They're starting to form in more of a doughy consistency. One thing as cookies is you really don't want to over mix them. So just like a quick mixing is all you need. And then we're going to add in 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. So it could be active if you want, but we're not using the active parts of it. We're just using the sourdough for the flavor and the good probiotics, and just a great way to, if you need to feed your discard or your starter, and which I need to do. So we're using a 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. There we go. Scoop that in. Perfect. I'm going to place this over here. And now we're going to mix those in real quick. Perfect. Okay. Now what I like to do so that I can cut out the sifting step, I'm going to add in my salt, my baking soda, my cream of tartar, and my cinnamon, and I'm gonna mix it into my mixture, then I'll add in my flour. That means I just don't have to waste another bowl sifting all of my dry ingredients together. I add the important ones, which are harder to mix in, to the wet ingredients first, and that way they get incorporated a lot faster. So we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So you want to use baking soda, not baking powder.
You have a question? Where can they find the recipe for the apple fritters?
Yeah, I'm still making that card. I got we had a big soccer weekend this thing, but I do have that coming up as a one that will be posted soon, a recipe card. But we do, I believe, have the video on the link through our page that you can use to access it and watch it through. I should hopefully have the recipe cards up soon. We're going to be using 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. Cream of tartar also goes by another name called alum, if you have that in your pantry instead. It's a thickening agent, so it will help the Snickerdoodles stick together. And that was 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. And now we're going to use a big, let's see, we're going to use 2 teaspoons of cinnamon now, and we'll use a little bit more later.
You have a question? Pete, he made a crinkle cookies from a recipe, and he just didn't like it. Do you ever alter recipes because, like, the recipes themselves aren't what you like?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when I go through, I change them to the way that I like them, or I've made them, and I'm like, oh, it needs more of this and not. I do that a lot because some person's recipe might be perfect for them, but it's maybe not your cup of tea. So like my Snickerdoodles, I add a bit more cinnamon in them and a bit more vanilla than a lot of other people do, but that's how I like them. There we go. You mix those in.
And so you just alter it through experience.
Yes, through trial and error and just kind of understanding. I also, prefer to use like butter or melted butter in my baking instead of oil for a lot of things. And so again, that's kind of changing up and doing it the way I like it. But yes, I do alter recipes or base recipes all the time. You know, cooking is not about reinventing the wheel. It's just about changing it to adapt to what you like and your preferences. Now we are going to add in our flour. We're going to add in about 2.5 cups of flour to our dough. And I do have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. That is, we'll be cooking it on. And we need, so that's this 1 cup. We're gonna add in 2, and now we have 1/2 more. It looks like my little one is stirring. I just put him down for a nap, and he sounds like he is trying to fight going to sleep. 2.5 cups of flour. But he'll be happy when he wakes up. He'll have cookies. And we're gonna mix in. You don't want to over mix your cookies. So you're gonna mix these until they're just barely combined. Over mixing leads to a very stiff cookie or bar or dough. So you don't wanna over mix. So we've just have them just now combined. And I'm gonna kind of knock out my beaters. And then I'm gonna use a spatula to kind of scoop them around. There we go, and kind of finish up the last bit of mixing, because again, you really don't want to over mix your cookies or your dough, or same with biscuits or brownies or cakes, because it just makes them more of a stiff cookie or stiff dough. So here is our dough for our Snickerdoodles. Now I'm gonna get the cinnamon sugar prepped that we're gonna roll them in, and we're gonna put them out on a baking sheet. So let me get my baking sheet ready so we can kind of just transfer these. And these are gonna be a nice soft, chewy Snickerdoodle. I'm gonna line my baking sheet with parchment paper. If you have not switched to parchment paper for baking, do it, you'll love it. Once I did it, I've never gone back to greasing a pan. I just find that they cook amazing on parchment paper. It works better than the silicone mats. It's like a game changer, and cleanup is so much easier. Okay, for Snickerdoodles, we're gonna have them, they're gonna roll in some sugar. So I'm gonna take about a half a cup of sugar, and I'm gonna put it in my bowl right here with some cinnamon, and we're gonna roll our dough into the cinnamon sugar, and that will make for the lovely sparkly crust on the outside of the Snickerdoodle. So I'm gonna do a tablespoon or half a tablespoon, which is 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. And gonna mix that in there. And let me get a quick fork to stir it up. Okay, we'll give this a nice stir. And this is like what makes it so delicious. The same thing, I have a sparkling molasses cookie that you roll in the cinnamon sugar, and that's just, it adds a bit of thing. So we're gonna take a ball of our dough, give it a quick roll. It's a very soft dough, so it's not super stiff, but it holds together well, and that's from the cream of tartar. Cream of tartar is kind of like a binding agent. It like helps thicken things up. I use it in like homemade Play-Doh. So we'll just roll, try to make sure they're all about the same size, and we're gonna just roll them in the thing, and we're gonna place them on our mat, or our parchment paper. And it's fairly easy, and then they'll kind of flatten out, so you wanna make sure you place them. I'm gonna do 4 per row so that they don't like run into each other. And I'm like a fan, I like to do smaller cookies compared to bigger ones, because I just find that bigger cookies never quite cook right. You'll either have, like, to get the perfect center, your outer sides of the big cookies always get too crunchy. So I like to just do small cookies that kind of cook up quicker, and they're just good all the way through. There we go. And you can fit more of them. Give this a quick roll. The tricky part is trying to get them all the same size. I know some people like to do like the ice cream scoop, or they make cookie scoops now. I just find my dough always sticks in a cookie scoop, so I just gotta go in with your hands. You know, the nice thing also about parchment paper is it has like kind of a grid on it, so it's really easy to make sure you have your cookies placed apart, because you can just line them right up on there. And I love this recipe because it's just a great yummy cookie, but it also is a great way to use some sourdough discard. I feel like so many people get like stuck in the rut of doing like muffins and scones or biscuits with sourdough discard, but I like to branch out. Like last night we made tortillas for our carnitas, and I've done pasta with the sourdough discard. you know, cookies, biscuits, quick breads. There's all sorts of things, but
Waffles.
Waffles, yes, waffles were a hit. My kids love it when I make waffles, and those are sourdough discard waffles are amazing. Same with our pancakes, because they give it a little bit slightly different flavor, but from the sourdough, but it's just like so yummy and gut healthy. Plus, we love to have, like tonight we'll be baking up our loaves of sourdough that we have kind of proofing in the fridge right now. We made like our traditional one, which we'll be using up the rest of our sourdough for lunch today, but we made a traditional loaf and a spinach feta, which I love spinach feta, so I'm very excited for that one. I feel like it's such a good combination. There's I guess it's a chain bakery here where we live called Great Harvest. And it's like on Thursdays or some day of the week you can get the spinach bread there, but I'm never in that part of town, and so I can never get it, but I love it. We got a few more of these, and then we'll pop the first batch in the oven, and then we'll start making our roast beef melts today. We're kind of doing a kind of like a poor man's Philly cheesesteak, essentially, for lunch. And there we go. Get this rolled up. I think I can sneak in one more row. I buy these are like extra large cookie sheets. They're a sheet and a half, so they fit the whole width of my oven, which is great because you can put more on a sheet. We're almost done here. And cookies never last long here. You know, I have 5 kids, so a kid will usually eat 2 or 3 cookies at a time when they grab them, so they go pretty fast. And I got 2 more to roll out, and we'll pop these in the oven. And 1 more, and then we'll save the dough for the next batch. Nice roll. Our dog's snoring over there. Okay, I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse, and then we'll pop our sourdough discard Snickerdoodles in the oven, and we'll work on our kind of poor man's Philly cheese melts. Okay, let's get these guys in the oven. These are gonna cook for about 10 minutes. So I will set my timer for 9 because I always like to look right before and give myself time to get there. So my oven is preheated to 350 degrees. We're gonna pop our batch in. And we're gonna bake these up.
You have a question? Do you know what you're making for supper tonight? Yes.
My husband has been asking me that all day, and I said it's gonna use chicken. I haven't 100% decided what we're having for dinner tonight, but I know it will use chicken thighs because I've got chicken thighs that need to cook up. I know, I don't meal plan as much as I should. My kids and my husband are always like, what are we having for dinner tonight? And I'm like, food. I have ingredients, but I can make so many different recipes with them that it's just what I feel like. So I know it's gonna use chicken thighs, so I'm thinking, I do have a lot of mushrooms, so I'm thinking I might do like a chicken Madeira with dinner tonight with some mashed potatoes, but I haven't been 100% sold on that. I kind of was originally thinking chicken noodle soup, but it's like 75 degrees outside. We're having like a mini summer right now, so I am like, I don't know if I want to do that either because it's so hot. Okay, we're starting out with sauteing up some onions, and we're gonna saute up some sweet peppers for our Philly cheese melts, our poor man's Philly cheese melts. So I'm gonna just put a splash of olive oil in there. And then we're gonna kind of break these out, and we're gonna let them saute up pretty quick. I'm gonna save, we don't need all of them, so I'm gonna save the rest for tonight. I'm sure I'll throw them into something, and then I'm gonna slice up our peppers. So these are just sweet peppers. I always have sweet peppers around because my daughter has them in her lunch every single day. So is always great to have on hand because they do add a great flavor to a lot of recipes. So we'll just slice these up. I'm gonna just do kind of long, thin strips in here. And I'm thinking, I might really do chicken Madeiras. I love it. Like Cheesecake Factory has like a version of it, which is so good. So I might do that. But again, my mind could change, which drives my husband insane sometimes. He's like, just make up your mind. And I'm like, I don't know. I tried to do the menu boards where I like write up my menu for the week. I never followed it. And then it was like pressure. Oh, I've got to use this. You know, cooking is an art. You can't pressure the artist. Okay, let's put our peppers in here and we're gonna let them saute up while we prep out the rest of our lunch. We're gonna be using up the rest of our loaves. They're dwindling down. Okay, so we've got, this was our specialty loaf last time, which was cheddar and green onions. This is our traditional loaf. So we've just got a little bit of each one left, enough to make, I think, 2 sandwiches for lunch, and then maybe a scrap for anybody who wants some toast later. So there's our green onion. There's a scrap for someone who wants it. I'm a lover of bread. I love it. Toasted, just plain, it's just so good. Okay, so not enough to make a sandwich with them, but enough in case somebody wants to enjoy some toast when they get home from school. Get my tongs out, and I'm just gonna give these a quick little stir. I'm just kind of crisping them up so that they're a little bit more softened for our kind of poor man's Philly cheesesteak. Because whenever I'm using like onions and peppers, I always like to give them a good saute because I think they taste better sauteed than just straight up fresh. We're gonna add a little bit of butter to one side of each of our bread. This is gonna be the side that's gonna be down on the skillet. You don't need a lot of butter, a little goes a long way. But I prefer to just butter my bread over the skillet because otherwise the milk solids tend to burn on the skillet in the butter. I did read somewhere that people use mayonnaise instead of butter making their grilled cheeses, which I think is, it totally works. Mayonnaise is just eggs and olive oil essentially, but it's just kind of like, ooh, that's weird. I like butter, so there we go. These are almost perfect. Let's start making these bed buys. So we're laying them down, and I'm going to turn on my skillet to start the warming up process. Okay, we're going to be using pepper jack, Colby Jack, and then some good old roast beef sandwich meat. Plus we got our peppers and onions. I'm going to layer first our Colby Jack. If you like a lot of heat, you could just double up the pepper jack. But I'm a wimp, and I can barely handle pepper jack. And get that up here. Put there. I make sure my cheese doesn't kind of go over the edge of my bread so that it doesn't melt down on my skillet, because that will just end up burning. And then you'll have burnt cheese, which makes sad. Okay. So the onions are perfect. My husband is not a big fan of peppers and onions, so they're only gonna go on mine. My win, his loss. So we've got my peppers there on, and then we're gonna add our beef, our roast beef. Now, if you wanted to do a super beefy melt, you'd want to heat up your beef, you could just throw it in your skillet and warm it up to have a lot of it. I'm just gonna do a thin layer, that way my meat and my cheeses will melt. If you try to do a thick layer of meat on your sandwich, it's so cold coming out of the fridge that cheese will never melt. So just, if you want a thicker one, then just warm it up in the skillet with your onions and your peppers. There we go. We're just gonna do thin layer here. The meat, it doesn't matter about the meat kind of dripping over. It's just the cheese that you don't want, because the meat will just crisp up, but it won't melt and burn. And then our top layer, we are going to do pepper jack cheese. If I can get it. There we go. And I'm a great lover of vegetables, so I will do my second layer of peppers and onions, because you can never have too much peppers and onions. And now we're gonna put our second layer of cheese. This is the pepper jack, which has a bit of a kick to it. If you like heat, you could do double layer pepper jack, and that will get you that nice kind of spicy cheesiness. But if you're a wimp like me, one is about all I can handle. There we go. Take this. And now we're gonna put on our thing. Make sure some of this cheese fit it under there. And we've got our next one going. We're gonna let it things. My cue is I listen till I can start hearing the butter like crackle and pop. And that's when I know it's ready for first flip. I always do 2 flips, because otherwise your cheese won't melt. Okay, let's see. Ooh, 34 seconds left on our cookies. So let me get clear off a space right over here. We have a second batch that we can throw in a little bit. But I'll probably bake those after I let you guys go, because you've already seen them bake once. And get our trivets. And I got my bear claws. I love my best friend got me these like 2 years ago for Christmas, and I love them. Oh, perfect. There you can see they've got the nice crack on them. That's just perfect. So let me push OK. Take these out. Nice, golden, beautiful. And then you're gonna let them sit on your tray for about 5 minutes. The residual heat of them will continue to cook, but also since this recipe has like the cream of tartar in it, it needs a minute to cool down for the base to sit. But these are our beautiful Snickerdoodles. They are gonna be a soft, chewy, and delicious cookie. Now let's get ready to flip over. Perfect. And we are going to do the first thing. So this is not our finished color. This is our first start to the warming up and the cooking. I cooked each of my sandwiches on both sides twice. The second time is to get that golden crisp on it. The first time is really just to heat the bread up and begin the melting process of the cheese. I find it works way better than trying to leave it on one side for a really long time, because it ends up that your bread will get burnt before your cheese is nice and gooey and melty. So it's kind of like a 2-step process here. Look at these. They're so perfect. But you see the little quick roll, and you've got these nice, beautiful shapes. This is a Snickerdoodle, has the lovely crinkle crust on it. And, you know, it's simple. It came from such an easy thing. I'm going to get my second baking sheet out. And we can start rolling up those. But I love a good, if you've never had a Snickerdoodle before, they're just a lovely cookie. They have the cinnamon flavor, but they also have, like, I want to say, it's like a sugar cookie with cinnamon, but there's like a little bit of a tartness to them, which is just absolutely lovely.
You have someone asking for the recipe?
Yes, I'll be making this recipe card, and I'll have it going out. I can run over it with you in just a second. Okay, let's start the nice crisping of the crusts now.
And this video will be uploaded in like an hour.
Okay, so it was 2.5 cups of flour with 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 cup of butter, 1 1/3 cup of sugar, of white sugar, and then 1/3 cup of brown sugar, and a tablespoon of vanilla, and then 1 egg plus 1 egg yolk, and then 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. I do my wet ingredients first, and then I add in all of my little like spices, powders, and then the flour last. And then we'll roll them in a mixture of cinnamon sugar, which was 1/2 cup of cinnamon with, or 1/2 cup of sugar with 1/2 tablespoon of cinnamon. And bake at 350. So it's a really, really easy one to use. Great way to use the rest of your sourdough discard. Get this out. We can start rolling. Really simple. It makes a good, I would say, let me see, it's gonna make 2 batches, so that is what, 8, 24, about 48 cookies. Then that is for our sourdough discard Snickerdoodles. And then here, I think we're getting close for, I think we've got a nice crisp, perfect. We're getting a lovely crisp and melt. And these are our, I will say, my poor man's Philly cheese melt.
You have a question? What is sourdough discard? You should probably do a video just on that.
Oh yeah, just explaining what it is. Okay, so if you have ever had sourdough bread, you need a sourdough starter to make it. And a starter, since sourdough bread does not have any, I have my starter right here. So this is my starter. It's fermented flour and water. You just leave it on your counter and it ferments, and that's what rises your sourdough bread. Sourdough bread does not use yeast, which is a typical, or baking soda or baking powder. It uses fermented flour.
You have a bigger one over there,
yes,
with that blue band over there.
So, but you have to keep your sourdough starter fed, which is giving it more flour so it can break down the glucose and keep the process going. So you have to feed it. If you leave it out on the counter every 2 to 3 days, or every time you use it, and if you can keep it in the fridge and keep it longer. But in order to feed it, you add more flour, which means you need to take some of it away, otherwise you'll have mountains of sourdough starter. So I use recipes for discard so that I am not just throwing away stuff. And this is our sourdough bread we made with it. This was a cheddar and green onion bread on this one, and this is our traditional sourdough, which is just literally 3 ingredients: flour, water, salt, and then the starter, which is made from flour and water, unbleached flour. But I will do a video on that to kind of, because a lot of people ask what starter is or what discard is, and it's just like the excess stuff that you have left over from making sourdough bread. But it makes things delicious and moist. But I'm gonna take my, let me get my plate. We're gonna put our sandwiches on here. So this one was with all the bells and whistles, the peppers and the onions. And this one. And see, we love making sourdough bread. We'll have it with our dinners that night, and then we always use the extra to make grilled cheeses or sandwiches because they're so delicious. But let me get a nice cut into this one with all of the peppers and the onions. And you have our roast beef. You can see like the nice cheesy drip, but so good. Excellent. And then we made our, I think they're ready to pick up now. Look at this. This is our beautiful sourdough discard Snickerdoodle. It is nice and chewy in the mid-side. It's not a crispy cookie. It's a soft, chewy cookie, and it's absolutely delicious. It has a lot of cinnamon in it, so it has a lovely cinnamon sugar flavor. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We try to do live cooking shows every single day. We like to post our videos about an hour or 2 after we're done on the link on our page.